Good afternoon and welcome everyone to today's session, Mastering the Business Operator Mindset to Deliver Results. My name is Janae Golden. I'm the Southwest Regional Director for the CFO Leadership Council and one of the team leaders for CXO Now, which is a community of executive women whose sole purpose is to encourage and empower each other. We meet monthly for a virtual power hour with inspiring speakers. Our last month's speaker was the fabulous Kelly Stuckelberg, CFO of Zoom. And our next speaker, Talita Fiera, is two-time author, former CFO, and Chief People Officer at BMW. Don't miss it. Don't miss the fun. I will be placing the registration link in the chat section momentarily, along with our LinkedIn group and our website. So make sure you keep abreast of all the upcoming events. We'd love to have you. If you're a Premier Access member, you also have access to CXO Now. So start today by registering for your first program with us. Now, let's kick off the session. Today's moderator is Vice President of Strategic Marketing at Sage Intacct, Rauli Garcia. Got the name right.
All right.
I'll turn it over to you.
Little wins. We like to start off with little wins like that, Janae.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting us to participate on this panel today. It's a shame it's only 50 minutes because what we have today is really a superstar set of CFOs that have done an incredible job of delivering for their organizations. So Janae mentioned that I'm the VP of Strategic Marketing for Sage Intacct, and you're probably thinking, this is a CFO Leadership Council thing. What is this guy talking about? Well, my background actually is that I've been the CFO or CAO of 4 different companies, and really where I was able to deliver the most value to these organizations has been through that intersection of bringing people, processes, and technology to bear on strategic decision making. And so really figuring out how to utilize the technology and bring in the data so that we can elevate ourselves from being the CFO bean counter that sits in the corner and only comes out when called to someone who is actually giving leadership and strategic direction to the organization with a full view of the financials and the thought behind the financials. So today we're going to talk about how do you deliver the business operator mindset and what does that mean? So if you think about it, today, what's been happening? If there's ever been a time when being valuable to the company was important for the CFO, this is it. In March, COVID came through and really just blew us all out of our offices, and it really created the perfect storm. If you think about what was going on right now, we have the cloud up there in the air, and all these organizations are trying to figure out how to best utilize technology to deliver results. You have this background noise of AI and ML, and what are the big question marks of what's going to happen around that and how that's going to support the business. And then COVID came into our lives and forced us to move. And we saw at Sage Intacct, we saw research that indicated many organizations accelerated their digital transformation by years, some of them up to 7 years. And it really forced the boards and the CEOs and the COOs to loosen up the purse strings and help CFOs and their IT departments invest in making their way into the cloud and making it easier for the company to do business. So one of the things that we've been talking about as a part of the CFO Leadership Council is how do we become more strategic in the organization, and bringing us into that idea of utilizing the people, the processes, the technology, bringing the data together. And at Sage Intacct, that we're an ERP system that really looks to bring all that together and give it to you in a space where you can use it for strategic decision making to help your organization know where you're going to go. Many of the ERP systems out there are cloud-based today and are giving you that ability. So figuring out how to use it. And what we're going to talk about today, we're going to meet 4 people, 4 CFOs who have gone through COVID and have had different experiences on how that impacted their organization, and really how they thought about putting themselves into the business operator mindset, because you can't just be thinking about the numbers when your organization gets disrupted the way that it has been in the last 9 months. So we're going to start out. I'm going to ask Melissa Clark to come on and introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Clark. I am currently the corporate controller here at Premier Engineers. We are a full service engineering company here based in Chicago, Illinois. And I've been in the industry for about 24 years now, so I've seen a lot, been through a lot, but this past year has been one of those years that I am so glad that several years ago, I decided to take my group paperless. We are pretty much 99% paperless, but then work really closely with our corporate group and talking in regards to, especially our IT guy, about some of the tools that we are utilizing, including Teams, and what we needed to implement. And we started that several years ago. And because of that, we actually had a really smooth transition going from working in the office to working at home.
Thank you, Melissa. Anthony, can you come on and tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Thanks, Rauli. My name is Anthony Folger. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Progress Software. I just joined Progress actually at the end of January this year. So I got about 4 or 5 weeks in the office before everybody went remote, which was a blessing because at least I got to put some faces with names, which is a good thing. But I've been a CFO for probably 15 years now, and have been been in the space for probably more than 25. And certainly have had a variety of roles and responsibilities sort of coming up through the finance function, including a lot of operational roles. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Awesome. And when we were on the build up for this particular call, I heard that Anthony won CFO of the year. So kudos to you, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. So I don't know, maybe I lost a little on my fastball.
Erin, come on and let us know a little bit about your organization and you as a CFO.
Hello, my name is Erin Horak, and I am the VP of Finance at Veracity Research Company. We're a investigation company for insurance fraud, so it's quite interesting. We also, like Melissa was saying, we went paperless about a year ago, year and a half ago, and on that same note, right, it made it really easy to transition to a remote workforce. And with a lot of the tools that we have in place with Intact and Flowcast, it was a no-brainer and really easy on my team. I can manage them all remotely and still get everything we needed to get done.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. And finally, and last but not least, at the top of the heap, Thresa. Thresa, come on and introduce yourself, please.
Sorry, there was a, can you hear me now? Okay,
yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Thresa Giles, and I'm the Chief Business Officer for PACE Center for Girls. And you're probably thinking, what is PACE Center for Girls? Well, we're a large non-for-profit that utilizes gender responsive, I'm gonna say this really slow, gender responsive, trauma-informed, strength-based program. And we work with girls between the ages of 11 and 17 that have at least 3 or more ACEs. And what that is adverse childhood experiences. So we're dealing with the at-risk population of girls. The Chief Business Officer oversees information technology, business intelligence, risk, compliance, all of the business operations of the organization. And one of the great things about bringing in a CFO or a CBO from different worlds, from the corporate world into a nonprofit, we were able to implement a lot of the different strategies that I've learned in corporate America. So when COVID happened in March, we literally turned our entire organization, meaning a little over 3,000 girls and over 560 employees, to virtual within 7 hours. And it was phenomenal because our results were even better because we are data queens and kings. Our results were even better that last quarter than it was the year before. So I look forward for the conversation.
Awesome. Well, so what's really interesting, first of all, I'll tell you that we got to see what it's like living in COVID today and working remotely. I heard that the quote of the year is, "You're on mute," because we've all experienced it so many times. It's really crazy. So you'll see there's a poll up right now. Given the current state of my business and my CEO's expectations, then fill in the blank. Fulfilling a business operator role is highly critical, important, but not mission critical. It needs to be balanced with my other responsibilities and not important at this time. So please feel free to jump in there and answer the poll there. So one of the things we heard that people were talking about is interacting with the rest of the company. And as Theresa said, many of us have had responsibility for more than just the finance group. We've had responsibility, many of us have the IT, potentially HR, operations, facilities. That really takes a lot of work to be able to look across an organization. And as a CFO, if you haven't taken the steps needed to really go out there and automate your systems, figure out how to bring the data together, you get stuck in the office. So what we'll hear about today is how people have brought their systems together. They have access to the data. We heard that a couple times. And it lets the CFO get out of the office. It lets your senior accountants get out of the office and go into the organization, meet the people, understand the needs of the departments, and then they can sit and they can talk and act as a consultant to the organization instead of staying inside their offices and being the no police. That's what I like to call. You don't want to be the no, well, I don't want to be the no police as a CFO. So here's my question for the panel. Tell us a little bit more about what's unique about your business and how that's influenced what your role is as a business operator versus a CFO. So you don't have to wear the little, what is the poker cap and the abacus. Tell us about your business and why you need to get beyond that, please. Melissa, why don't you kick us off?
I'll start off. So, I'm dealing with engineers. Like I said, we're a full service engineering firm. We deal with transportation, utilities, buildings, and then we have a consulting group as well. So one of the things that always happens in that area is I'm always having to think about what is necessary for those business units to work and operate, and what tools are needed for them to be successful in what they do. And it's amazing that each of those divisions have different uses or means for the different types of tools that they have. The system that we currently use is called Deltek Vision, and that system is very robust. So, but you have to remember, engineers think a lot of times they know everything, they know the numbers. So I am having to take them through how to utilize that system to the best of their abilities and incorporate it into what their clients need as well. And so through that process, I'm really working with not only the division managers, I'm working with the engineers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s, and getting them to understand what they do and how it affects the projects in order to be successful and to make sure that we're making money. So that's one of the things that bringing in that type of a tool and helping them to learn and operate that. I spend about 80% of my time working with them on looking at contracts. How do we figure out how to minimize the risk on these particular contracts that we're doing? Taking a look at, during the COVID timeframe, our buildings division, of course, a lot of their projects stopped. So I had to focus on, okay, how do we cross-train these engineers so that we don't lose those individuals that are working in the buildings division and our utilities division, because so much was going on, and of course, infrastructure. We had to figure out how do we get them geared up and trained, especially during, the shutdown, and start working and maximizing their talents and their usage on the utility side. So those are the types of things that I talked to and worked with, both of the business units, the president of our company, and then also making sure that they have the equipment available and the tools available so they could be successful in their jobs.
That sounds a little bit complex.
It is, but it's a lot of fun. It's something that I like to do. But you really learn when you get involved in what they're doing on a day-to-day, and you show that you're interested in what they're doing. I found that they're more willing to share with you what's happening, being able to come to you for advice on how to handle different clients or consultants, working through those contracts. How do I negotiate with this particular client? This is what they're asking. How can I see my resources and how I need to know who additional people I need to add to this particular project. So that's where I come into play, really working with the tool, showing them how to utilize that system so that they can fully maximize not only their contract value, the profitability on their projects, but make sure that everybody is still working and billable within our firm.
So that's exactly what I was talking about. You can't, the word that you use, come to me for advice, or you go to them to give advice. If you're the no police, nobody wants to go near you. So you have to change the mindset and the culture of the organization and rebuild the relationships sometimes between finance and the rest of the organization. So who wants to go next? Theresa, you're shaking your head. Are you ready to do some contributions here?
Yes,
Hey,
I thought
Rauli.
it was
Yes.
excellent what Melissa said, because it is exactly exactly that, being very strategic. And you're always thought of as the no police. So when I first came into PACE, the first thing that I did bring in or do is enterprise risk assessment. And then that way, everyone, the entire organization participated and understood what our risks were. Now, back then, about 5 years ago, we weren't anticipating a pandemic, but that was part of our risk. So the conversation started off being that strategic. Whenever we're making strategic visions, it's not about the no, but what can you do? So that really helped us doing that enterprise risk assessment, getting all of, and with a nonprofit, a large nonprofit, you do have a trustee board, sort of like a corporate board or investors, but these trustees can dictate or govern how your organization goes. And with PACE being a little over 35 years throughout the state of Florida and in Georgia, there's a lot of input to it, and so it's never the no. But what they have done, and what we've done over the last 10 years, is changed the narrative. That I mean, when I came to PACE, I was the CFO. They changed it. We changed it to CBO because it was not just the finance. It's more of that strategic partnership with the CEO. Every decision that we make together. One of the big things I laugh at on my resume is that I have to put construction foreman on it, because I've now built 7 buildings throughout the state of Florida. I know everything about construction and the cost, trust me. But it is something that is different than the CFO. It's not just the numbers. Is it the right business decision? Is it the right growth plan? And so that piece of it is exactly what Melissa said. It's more of advice and understanding it. So now they come to us more of the strategic notion. What should we do? How do we do this? And the first time, a change is hard for anyone. So the first time I implemented the change in technology, meaning to come work at PACE, you sign a statement that technology is our forefront. Everything is technology.
Oh.
That means we use Teams, we use everything that's out there. There is no paper. And one of the biggest thing was, you have to have a credit card. So every staff, 565 staff members, have credit cards, because we don't do paperwork. And it's a little bit hard when you have that change about, why are you doing this? Well, then when they see the strategic plan behind the growth and how much we save, what we call cost avoidance, and I'm so big on data, my business intelligence department, that's all we produce is that data. They're now able to make business informed decisions. So we have teachers that talk about the business informed decisions. We have counselors that teach our girls. And let me tell you something, youth, 11 to 17, they're very smart. They're very wise. And because they're at risk doesn't mean they're not going to try to get around the system. So when we went all virtual, you should have seen IT and security, because our girls are very intelligent of getting around protocols to do things that they're not. You know, I had this one girl who had a whole store. Well, she was an entrepreneur. It was a little illegal, but the fact is, they can do that. So you always have to be strategic. And so when you have a counselor calling and say, you know, I need a strategic plan on how to do X, Y, Z, then you can sit back as a finance person and smile and say, we've done it. We did exactly that.
I love it. That's great. And I want to see you in your hard hat before the end of this show, just so you know.
I got it.
So Erin, I want to go to you next, but Anthony, I'm going to prep you because I'm getting ready to come back to you. As being a new sitting CFO in a new organization, it would be really interesting to hear your context up between what Melissa and Theresa said about being in the organization, how they went through it in several years, and how you've done it most recently. But Erin, tell us, I know when you implemented your ERP system, you saw incredible gains. And so how did you push that into the organization, and what kind of benefit did you see from it?
Yeah, so our organization, the finance group, was definitely not seen as a strength of the organization before. I was part of a private equity acquisition, and part of that goal, right, was to strengthen the finance department. Everything was done paper, everything was done antiquated. And what I tell my team all the time is we are going to be the leaders and we're going to lead by example. We're going to be at the forefront, right? And that gets you a seat at the table. Before, finance was told, here's all the stuff we've done, figure out how to make it work. And now we're on the forefront of those decisions so that we can say, whoa, this might mess up 15 other things here. And for finance to really be an integral part of the organization is important. Insurance is a highly regulated industry. Every customer is special, meaning everyone's got different rules and different requirements. And like I said, most of the time it was, here, finance, figure out how to make this work. So really pushing to that forefront, leading by example, got us a seat at the table and helped us to make those changes on the front end so that we have accurate reporting and analysis on the back end. And that going paperless, a lot of our other departments had a lot harder time going remote than our group did.
That's awesome. And one of the things you just mentioned, there was somebody who had a question about going paperless. When you did that, did you have one person that was in charge of that, or how did you actually roll that out?
So I pretty much just ripped the Band-Aid off. I'm throw the kid in the pool, see if they know how to swim, rip the Band-Aid off. It'll hurt for a second and it'll get better. So we just started the process of being paperless in the finance department and, made a cutoff date. From this point forward, everything is going to be scanned. Intact makes that easy. We use Flowcast as well, which again makes that really easy. So we kind of drew a line in the sand. Everything after this point is going to be paperless. You are going to have people who don't want to do it because they need to touch something. So again, they can print it, but just going ahead and ripping off that Band-Aid, everyone will fall in line eventually.
Man, you sound tough. So Anthony, there's a question up here that says, for each of you CFOs, how much time do you dedicate to being a business operator? And so in the context of what we're talking about, and what I'm asking you is, stepping into an organization, how do you evaluate what the first step is? And that's been a consistent message. Well, one of the things we're going to come back to is, we're going to end this by saying, here's the 2 or 3 things that you can do today to help your organization as you move down this path of going from CFO to business operator. How do you evaluate that when you step into an organization for the first time?
It's a tough thing to do, Rauli. And, I hear Erin and Thresa and Melissa, and I think I see parallels in a lot of what they've done and in things that I've done, especially recently since joining Progress. Erin mentioned having a strong finance team, or prior to her arrival, not necessarily having the strongest team. Coming into Progress, I had a very strong team when I hit the ground, which allowed me to get out of the office, as you mentioned. I think if you don't have a strong team who's invested in automation and systems and really some scalable process, it makes being a real business operator a challenge, because I think what ends up happening is you end up in your office and you're firefighting and you're reactive much more than being engaged with the business. And when I listened to Thresa talk about being strategic, and I listened to Melissa talking about engaging and showing interest with other people in the business. And so I had the opportunity when I came into Progress, because we had really embraced automation. I had a very strong, and still do have a very strong team that supports me. I was able to organize some pretty detailed product line reviews with people in the business, so that I got to know people. I got to understand how, we as a company, we've got roughly 10 different product lines that have more than 25 million of revenue each. And so there's a lot of moving pieces and parts in there. And so I really spent months when I first got in to do these product line reviews, to understand the business, to get to meet the people. And then I spent time with my CEO and our leadership team to align on the strategy. So I felt like I had a decent understanding of the business. we really aligned around what the corporate strategy was going to be. And to me, those elements were critical, because then with a strong team, I can be in the business and I can be influencing decisions around resource allocation, around what type of metrics we're going to use to evaluate the business performance, and really just stay engaged as a business operator. And my answer to the question would be, if I could spend 100% of my time as a business operator, I think the business gets more out of me in that capacity than they do if I'm focused on compliance or other things that are necessary, but that can soak up a lot of time in the business.
I agree, and I'm sure I can see everybody's head where everybody's going, yes, yes, yes. It's so true. It's so true. And so adopting the technology and figuring out how to bring the data together, having the business analytics department that Thresa built, we did that in one of my organizations also, and frees you as the CFO or the controller or the finance director to think about other things. And if you look down the path of where AI and ML is heading, a lot of the things that are being done and that our teams spend hours and hours and hours doing are going to happen automatically. You're going to see automatic, I mean, this is real life. It's happening right now. It happens at Sage Intacct. It's happening. Automatic bank reconciliations, automatic allocations, AI timesheets. This is real life stuff. So when you talk about how much time can you focus on being a business operator, taking the chance to think about how do you take your organization from where it is today and where are you spending most of your time manually? How do you leverage the technology and the data to take it as far as you can in an automated way and using AI? The more you do that, the more you're freed up to do the things that all five of us have talked about so far. So that's the great thing about this perfect storm. We were forced out of our nests by COVID. At the same time, many of us on the call had already made those time investments and dollar investments in getting to the cloud and bringing the organization's data into one place. And so you were prepared. And when you needed it, it was there. That's the important thing. So that's great. No wonder you guys are on this panel. That's crazy. Okay, so tell us now, what's been the most important area for you to focus on lately? Because as a CFO, it's really easy to say, well, cash flow is it. But I know there are a couple of people on this call that had different experiences. And actually, Thresa, why don't you kick this one off? Because you'll give us one side of it. Then Melissa, you follow up because you'll give us the other side of this.
Yeah. So it wasn't cash flow so much for PACE, it was security, because we had, like I said, we had youth, over 3,000 youth now, 100% remote. And the great thing about it is we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose. If you look at the educational data in all of our school districts in the United States, most of them lost 40 to 50% of their students when they went ILA in March throughout. We didn't want that to happen because they're already at risk. So our biggest influx, our big concern at that time is security, because they are very, very smart, and it went full fledged for that. So once we got to that point where security was our number one, then we moved back into assuring staff. Remember, your number one asset is your staff. I've always said that our number one asset is our staff. We want to make sure that during this emotional time of being fearful or afraid and not the unknown, and then you hear all of the layoff situations, we needed our staff to be really, really firm to be able to counsel and make sure our girls did not go back in education, because it takes 1 month to put any child almost 1.5 years behind in education. So we then focused mostly on our staff to make sure they knew exactly what we had put into place to ensure they wouldn't lose their job. So between security and our staff, those were our number two focuses on it. And of course, then I got back into the finance piece of cash flow and all of that. But strategically, to move the organization forward, I had to hit security and staff because those were my assets. So that's what we focused on.
Interesting. Okay, so there's a poll popped up. I would assess my team's business operator mindset as. Go ahead, fill that out, and we'll follow Melissa.
Yeah. So, our biggest focus when everything happened was, number one, what was actually kind of cool, I shouldn't say cool, but one of the things that we really patted ourselves on the back was we used to meet on a monthly basis and have emergency preparedness around different situations. And 2 years ago here in Chicago, we had the polar vortex. which gave us an idea for 2 days, everybody working from home, whether or not our systems were going to handle everything. So that was one of our first topics was, and concerns was, can our systems really handle everybody working remotely for who knows, for several months going forward? And we said, yes, we can. Second was our client base, and looking at not only our client base, our projects, what projects were going to go on hold. If those projects go on hold, how are we going to maintain our staff? How can we transfer those individuals that are in that particular sector that those projects are going on hold, give them reassurance that we're not going to lay them off, and get them trained up to transfer to another division and help them out during that time frame. Then, of course, yes, cash flow. So one of my biggest concerns was when we were going remotely, oh my goodness, how are we going to get paid, and how are we going to pay our consultants? Because we're still considered one of those essential workers and essential jobs, especially working for the utilities company. And so I had to quickly put together some forms, communications, getting out to our consultants, having them give us our ACH information, and then contacting our clients to make sure that they could pay us ACH. But then in strategically also taking a look at, okay, from that perspective, making sure that we are communicating to our organization that we are still healthy. So one of our saving graces is at the beginning of this year, we implemented Great Game of Business. So if anybody has heard about that, that has helped our staff stay knowing that, they see the financials, they see we meet on a weekly basis, we still do remotely. They see where we're at financial wise, taking a look at areas that they can help out in, making sure that they're remaining billable. So implementing that, keeping that constant communication open with our staff. We really didn't lose anybody during this time frame. We actually were able to gain other companies, other engineering firms that were actually starting to lay off staff. Our HR people got on it, and we actually, that was the one thing from the HR side of it, was how are we going to orientate? How are we going to actually interview and get people hired? Actually, my assistant controller was one of the first that I actually went through that process and hired an excellent person. So, taking a look at how we were going to do all of that was our biggest concerns, and we were actually able to do it.
Awesome. Anthony, there's a poll, there's a question up here that maybe you can feather into this as you are talking about what's the most important that you focused on. Have you ever had the president or CEO push back when you think about taking an organization into the future for digital transformation? I'm going to say yes, because it happens every time. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, sure. I guess, and I can try to work an answer to that question in here as well. I would say the biggest area of focus for probably the first 2 to 3 months when we shifted to remote was just making sure that we could actually function. And, we're an infrastructure software company. And so you would probably think that we're pretty much early adopters when it comes to any sort of technology and enabling our people and our customers, which we generally were, but a lot of it was untested. We never had really put 2,000 people into a full remote work environment. And so it was a little bit concerning, I guess, or we figured there would be challenges. And for us, we needed to make sure that we could still deliver product. We could still support our customers, and we could still sell, and those are pretty basic to any software company. But when you have that many people going remote, and we knew most of our customers and partners were going remote as well, it presents a lot of challenges. And the other side of the coin was with our employees, was really making sure that first we were going to keep people safe, and we mandated a work from home policy globally. So, let's make sure we keep our people safe. Let's make sure that we enable them to get their jobs done. And once we felt like we had employees and customers sort of working and in sync, and the business was continuing to move forward, the next thing we had to think about was, could we actually go out and acquire a company in the middle of a pandemic, because M&A is central to our strategy. And we did ultimately get to, we got through that wicket in September, October, and closed an acquisition. And so I feel like now with, the customers, the employees, and our business strategy all intact and seemingly working on all cylinders, I think we feel pretty good about where we're at. But we had to take it in, I would say, bite-sized chunks like that. When it comes to CEOs pushing back, I would say, sure, it's not only on digital transformation. It can be in a lot of aspects, right? And I think, to me, making sure that you've got really good alignment with your CEO is critical. And I think if you have alignment around the strategy and what it means to resource allocation, then more often than not, you're going to be aligned on the actions that you take. Now, sometimes CEO may want to take a different path for one reason or another. And I think, sometimes there's a good business reason for it. Sometimes there isn't, and you still go along with your CEO because he or she is the CEO. And sometimes you push back, right? I think sometimes, and again, I think this goes back to the unique aspect of the CFO's role. You see everything. You see all the numbers in every department, every organization, every business unit, and you've got a very unique perspective on how the business is running. And that's incredibly valuable to a CEO. And so if you have an effective partnership and if you have alignment around the strategy, more often than not, you're going to be in sync when it comes to those decisions. But, sure, there are times when that's not the case, and you just got to resolve it.
Wow. I tell you what, that relationship between the leader of the organization and the finance leader of the organization is so critically important. I always like to say that I don't even think the CEO understands the organization as well as the CFO, because while they have a good grasp of the numbers, sometimes they don't understand it the way that we do and see like that full 360 that you mentioned, Anthony. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, Erin, I think I remember you telling me that when you went on board with your company that they gave you carte blanche to make changes and automate everything. So am I wrong? And if I am, still tell us what's important to you now.
No, I was hired by the private equity group, so they knew that there needed to be a lot more sophistication in the financials. And honestly, kind of going back to what Anthony was saying, I was kind of given, hey, make it work. We just need this end product. And when I talk to people who are transitioning maybe to a different accounting software, different expense software, whatever, my biggest focus is getting to the end result, right? We have to, and as accountants, a lot of times our natural bent is to keep doing what we've always done. And I've always told my teams that that's a swear word. You're not allowed to use it. You have to pay $1. We'll go have a fun happy hour or a nice meal together with those collected funds. But really, you have to think outside the box. You've got to think, what's going to get me to the right answer? What's going to do it most efficiently and effectively? Because look, data entry is not where accountants add value. They add value in analysis. And when you can move away from that data entry, and my organization was very heavy on the data entry side, and move to that analysis phase, again, that gets you a seat at the table because you're not just crunching numbers and putting out numbers. You're actually doing analysis and giving some feedback as to what the numbers are telling you. What story are they telling you? So I think just thinking outside the box and making sure you're leveraging the technology that's available, whether it be through APIs or AI, that all helps. And now that we're all remote, we really have to, right? You can't be keying from a piece of paper anymore. You've got to be looking at multiple screens and doing it from there, or having it feed directly over. So yeah, thankfully they did pretty much give me carte blanche to make those changes and get to a more sophisticated level.
Must be nice. Must be nice to get carte blanche. Never seen that before, not even in my house. So there's another polling question up there. As it relates to business operator mindset, I would assess my skills as master, competent, developing, and novice. So take a second to fill that out. It's important for CE credits. So one of the things that we've been talking about as a part of this CFO leadership week is like, what are the investment options you make as an organization? And I gave a couple of these panels this week, and I heard it basically spread across the four of you around focusing on the customer, what the customer's needs are, addressing the message that goes to the public, thinking about operational efficiencies, and being able to think about your business and forecast. And so having the operator mindset, you get out from behind, what is my P&L, getting into the organization, what are the needs of the organization, what are the needs of our customers, and then using the technology to free you to go spend time on those things.
Yeah.
This is why you guys are here. So tell us a little bit about what's challenged you the most at being effective as a business operator rather than just a CFO and an accountant. So think about that just for a second. What's the biggest challenge you've had being effective? Is it, for example, it could be the requirements of you being behind your desk and grinding through spreadsheets versus understanding the needs of the business. Does someone want to take that one and start us off with that?
I can take that.
Well, go ahead.
Mine will be real quick, Theresa. So I think, like I said before, insurance is a highly regulated industry, right? And every client's unique. So I think that's our biggest challenge. A lot of times with set process or set protocol, it's hard to scale among a lot of different rules. So we had to get creative and make sure that we had things in place that were dynamic to be able to meet all the needs of the customers. And so we weren't grinding on a spreadsheet.
I think
Totally. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Theresa.
No. For us, PACE is there now, but when I came, they were in most organizations where they don't believe that the finance person just sits there. And it took that time of building the relationship, having that vision to talk with each other, to show how to grow. My biggest challenge was understanding that I would not just crunch numbers, that I would build buildings. And to your point, see?
Yes, that's what I wanted to see. I love it.
So it's weird that they see the CFO or the CBO out actually doing all of the construction contracts and then playing with strategically of how do you order equipment, knowing the market and how expensive lumber is during that time and what's the best time to build a building. So now they are at that point, but that was my biggest challenge because I did not have, like Erin said, I had to rebuild everything. My first week there, we had 17 centers throughout the state of Florida. And my first question was, where's the network administrator? And they went, oh, well, we don't really need that. We don't really acknowledge. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is entrapment. You did not tell me this. Right. This is entrapment. So to Erin's point, we rebuilt everything. And so the mindset now is not only do I have an admin, I have an engineer, I have developers, because we had to change that mindset. So now on any given Sunday, you can see me out in my hard hat on construction sites because we have to do that and understanding the strategic plan to better use of money, cash flow, right?
I love it. Anthony, why don't you take us now?
Yeah, I would say that most of us coming up through a finance organization would tend to be analytical, left brain thinkers. And I think the biggest challenge is being curious, right? Just having this continued curiosity about your organization, being engaged. And I think it was Melissa initially who talked about showing interest in the business and people in the business, being strategic and getting other executives in the company aligned behind the strategy. None of those things are about debits and credits. And so I think at times it can feel unnatural or it can be a drain to be focused in that way all the time. But I found the more that you can sort of break away from your comfort zone, which probably is going to be more left brain thinking, and be curious and engaged, and ensuring that we're holding each other accountable for the results that we sign up for. Those things will help propel the business forward. And to me, that's the biggest challenge, is just every day waking up and having that mindset. because sometimes
it's
it is much
obvious.
easier. Yeah, sometimes it is much easier to just, close your office door and grind away on a spreadsheet for a day. But I don't think the company gets the same value.
They don't want you to hide. Nope,
No.
that's not the value. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. So Melissa, I want you to go ahead and answer this question, but for the rest of you guys, and at the end of this, Melissa, why don't you give us 1 or 2 takeaways that people who are on this are listening to the panel right now can think about implementing today when they walk out of here that can help them drive that change in their organization towards a business operator mindset. And while she's doing that, you guys on the call, make sure that you go onto social media and connect with everybody on the panel. Let us know what you think, and let the CFO Leadership Council know how much you appreciate and love this.
So I would say one of the biggest challenges is getting your organization to not just see you as the numbers person, but see you as a team player. So with that being said, the biggest thing that I would say that you need to do is first put together your list of who are the key people in each of your business units. And make a determination of how are you going to engage with them and talk to them and find out what their needs are. A lot of times if you approach them, instead of saying, hey, here's the numbers, this is what I'm seeing, ask them, what do you need from us? What do you need from finance? What can we do to help you be successful in your role? And when you start to have that conversation with them, it's amazing how they will start to lean on you for that advice and ask you for those numbers so that they can be successful.
Awesome. And your takeaway?
My biggest takeaway
No pressure.
is, overall, be patient, be engaging. And the biggest thing is be that person that people can come to. Be that person within your organization, from the CEO all the way down to the administrative person, that they can rely upon and they can trust in you, that you have their best interests at heart.
Oh, that's awesome. You went straight for the emotion. Nice
I
job.
did.
All right, Erin, what's your takeaway for us?
I think I'd second what Melissa said, right? Be patient, and I think listening. A lot of times we've already done the analysis to get to the answer or to get where we, to see what the end should look like. But sometimes you just have to lead them down the path and listen to what their pain points are and why they don't want to do it, to soften the blow that, by the way, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anthony, why don't you go next? What's your takeaway for the team?
Yeah, I think to build on what Melissa and Erin just said, I think having that curiosity and really being engaged with the business is critically important, and being part of that team in a strategic way. And I think also influencing the outcome, right? I think, and Erin sort of alluded to this, a lot of times you've done the analysis, all the numbers, you understand the strategy, the answer that you have to get to for the company, the right answer for the company. Sometimes, the shortest path is a straight line between 2 points. So it may feel quicker to say, here's where we're going. But I think a lot of times when you can influence the decision to get to the right spot using your understanding of the business and your understanding of the strategy, and bring people along in that discussion, I think what it does is it gives other people a perspective that they probably did not have without talking to someone who's a business operator or a finance leader. And I think you can win a lot of people over that way, and you can get people aligned behind a strategy and a vision that way. So, be engaged, do the work, and really look to influence the outcome in the right way.
Awesome. All right, Thresa, close us out.
I would say detail to everything, but as a Wharton Fellow, I would leave you with The Art of Woo. Please get the book. The Art of Woo is phenomenal. And that's what you do. You'll understand the why, and they'll be right there. So The Art of Woo.
I love it. I love it. Well, on behalf of the CFO Leadership Council, Sage Intact, and all of my colleagues on the panel, thank you for joining us. Great job, team. You guys were awesome. Hope you guys learned something, and we look forward to the next time we meet.